5.
The president wants to spy on 200 million Americans without a warrant. Has he read this document, which he was sworn to uphold?
Now, I will not have you libel Abraham Lincoln.
I don't understand the problem with registering guns. We register cars.
Mark Levine brings you the news the government doesn't want you to know.
Today, an explosive story about connections between white supremacists and Islamic terrorists.
When there's a conflict between Scalia's conservative values and the Constitution of the United States, he throws away the Constitution.
We do have secret prisons. That is not what America's all about.
Let's go to Mark in 5, 4, 3, 2. Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. It is 7 o'clock Monday, September 30th. That means that in 5 hours, unless the Republican Party ends its intra-party squabble, the United States federal government will shut down. It's not quite clear what will happen then or if there will be a resolution, but I've invited as a guest someone who knows a lot about the Republican Party. He's Republican strategist Mike Lane. Mike Lane, welcome again to the Inside Scoop.
Thanks for having me back, Mark. It's a fun night.
It is a fun night. So I want to play for you the person who I think may be the leader, or at least according to the media seems to be the leader of your party. He's someone who's been talking a lot on air lately. This is Senator Ted Cruz of Texas in his 21-hour non-filibuster of the legislation to keep the government going. We'll explain the non-filibuster in just a second. Here's Ted Cruz.
Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham all that often. So I don't get to read it that often because I tell them, go pick the books you want to read, and I read it to them. But since tonight, girls, you aren't here, you girls don't get to pick the book, so I got to pick Green Eggs and Ham. And I love this story, and so I'm going to read it to you. Sam I am. That Sam I am, that Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am.
So at a time when people are wondering if our national parks are going to be open, if the Smithsonian is going to be open, if the veterans are going to get their checks, I know that's a side point, we'll talk about that as well. At a time when people want to know if they can get their passports or really any of the things that the government does, Ted Cruz is reading the illustrious novel Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss on the Senate floor. I can't think this looks good for your party.
Mark, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. There was nobody who was going to say anything else on the Senate floor. And besides that, reading Green Eggs and Ham to me is a lot more interesting than reading the phone book, which is what most people who do filibusters at 3 o'clock in the morning do.
What's interesting,
it's
of course.
Irrelevant. Come on.
Well, it's definitely irrelevant. And what makes it even more irrelevant, as you pointed out before the show, is it wasn't even a filibuster. He talked for 21 hours under Senate rules that said he had to yield the floor on Wednesday anyway. So it was complete grandstanding. There's just no other name for it. This is a guy trying to get a lot of attention. Is he running for president? Why is he doing this?
No, he's running for president, among other things, yes.
Okay. How does he feel this is going to help your party? Because I take it you don't agree.
No, this is not about. This is Ted Cruz helping Ted Cruz. You know, this is not any grand scheme. You know, in order to win the nomination for the party, you have to be able to consistently get between 20 and 30% in any given contest. And you know, I'm sure that if you took a poll right now, his numbers would be floating around that area someplace.
Is he someone who could win the Republican nomination?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah, I don't believe so either. And if he did, as a Democrat, I'd be very pleased. Go Ted Cruz, Republicans, because
I mean, not today.
He'd be easy to beat.
It's years away, but I don't believe so, no.
So let's talk about what's going on here. You've got a continuing resolution to keep the government funding. It's actually going to be funding at Republican levels, at the sequester levels, at lower levels than the Democrats
First
want.
of all, the sequester was President Obama's idea, not the Republicans' idea. So
as you recall, the Republicans said we are going to stop payment on the national debt, default for the first time in American history, never make our T-bills worthless, ruin the economy for generations unless you give us something like the sequester.
Revisionist history.
And that's what Obama did.
Nobody ever talked about default. You know, paying our bills would be the very first thing you ever do when the debt ceiling is not raised. You never default on anything. It's a red herring. Sorry.
As you know, there's never been a time in American history
and there will not be if Obama is responsible.
Well, in 2 weeks, the next issue comes, and that will be whether or not America pays its bills.
And I hope.
And to be fair, George Washington paid his bills during the Revolution. Abraham Lincoln paid bills during much harder times during the Civil War. Franklin Roosevelt, World War II was extremely expensive. He paid the nation's bills. The Republicans seem to say that if you don't give us the law we want, that the majority, that 60 votes in the Senate passed and the majority in the House passed and the president signed, and we had this long debate for 3 years and you and I argued about it, and the law is done. It's going to go into effect tomorrow, October 1st, and we'll get to that in a minute. If you don't basically give us what we want, we're going to ruin the American economy for centuries.
All right, Mark, first of all, I would hope that if the debt ceiling is not raised, for whatever reason, that the president would continue to pay the bills. It would be the only responsible thing to do. Secondly, just because something has been enacted into law doesn't mean that, you don't keep using every bit of leverage and every tactic you have to try and repeal it if it's something that you don't care. Democrats have been trying to repeal things that Republicans passed. How many years in a row did you try and repeal the Bush tax cuts? Oh, was it 12?
But I'll tell
Yes,
you
I think it was 12.
I'll tell you the Democrats never did. They never said, we're going to shut down the government unless you end the Bush tax cuts. They never said, we're going to not pay our national debt. We're going to refuse to raise the debt limit unless you end the Bush tax cuts. We never held the government or the country hostage for the issues that we had lost politically. Why does your party feel that's fair?
Nobody's holding the country hostage on paying the bills. The bills will be paid as long as the president prioritizes things appropriately.
As long as the president does whatever the Republicans say he should do, they will allow the bills to be paid. Otherwise, Republicans are fully willing to have the entire government shut down tomorrow.
No, the bills will still be paid. Even if there is no continuing resolution, the bills will still be paid.
Okay, well, let's
even if
separate
there is
two
no increase in the debt limit, the bills will still be paid.
Okay, let's separate two things. Because one is the question of whether the government will shut down, whether the federal government will stop working tomorrow and hundreds of thousands of workers will be furloughed. Last time this happened, this cost the government tens of billions more. It doesn't save any money because they end up paying all the back pay, and people just get really frustrated
which they shouldn't,
and angry at the government. In fact, Congress now has a 10% approval rating. I'm surprised it's in the double digits. Frankly, I thought it would be in the single digits, but it is apparently the lowest.
I think it's 9.6. They rounded it up.
The lowest that CNN has ever polled. And your party is backing away from the likes of Ted Cruz. Speaker Boehner doesn't want to do this. Mitch McConnell doesn't want to do this. And now some moderates, as we go to press, as we're talking on air live, there's some 20-odd moderate members of the Republican Party that might do something unheard of in the House. They might vote against the procedural rule that basically allows the Speaker to control everything on the House floor, join with the Democrats, and keep the government open.
Not unheard of at all. It happened to Jim Wright several times when he was Speaker.
That's a long time ago.
Well,
it hadn't happened in a decade or two.
All right.
Put it that way. The point is this. You clearly don't think this is the right strategy for your party.
Where are we trying to get to? If we're trying to get to a repeal of Obamacare, I do not believe this is the path that's going to be successful.
You believe the way to get a repeal of Obamacare would be to have the House pass a bill and the Senate pass a bill and the president sign that bill?
No. The president's not going to sign the bill. We have to wait until 2017.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And then you have every right to say it didn't work. Alf Landon ran in 1936, a Republican candidate that said Social Security is a complete failure. It's not working. We want to defeat it. And he did win 2 states. Franklin Roosevelt won all the other states. So you'll have that chance in 2016, but that's the proper way to get rid of legislation.
No, there are many ways. Look, the way to get rid of it is the successful way to get rid of it. I don't believe that what Senator Cruz is trying to accomplish is going to be successful. So therefore, it's not my preferred strategy. But if it works, it's an entirely proper way to go about it.
It's entirely proper. And therefore, you're setting up a standard. And again, I think what you're saying is it's proper to shut the government down to get what you want. It's not proper to default on the debt to get what you want.
Nobody's talking about shutting the government down. You keep mentioning that.
That's what Ted Cruz plans to do. That's exactly what your party expects to happen.
Ted Cruz, I could
That's what's going to happen if your party doesn't.
If you give me a half an hour on YouTube, I can find you 30 quotes of Ted Cruz saying, I don't want to shut the government down.
He can say that all he wants.
Harry Reid is the one who wants to shut the government down.
Harry Reid is the one who wants to keep the government opening.
No, he isn't.
With the standard continuing resolution that
There's no such thing as a standard continuing resolution.
The continuing resolution actually funds Republican priorities. As you know, President Obama has lowered the deficit year after year after year after year, while George Bush increased it year after year after year. There's no president other than Bill Clinton that's done such a great job reducing the deficit other than Barack Obama. The Republicans should be celebrating and cheering him. The continuing resolution keeps the sequester, keeps that 5% cut, and in terms of money levels, Republicans should be very happy. The only thing they don't like is they didn't agree with the Affordable Health Care Act, and they want to try to stop it.
Mark, first of all, when Bush took office, the annual deficit was about.
When Bush took office, there was a surplus.
It was about. No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't.
Bill Clinton.
It was about.
2000
It was about $250 billion in that area. When he left office, it was about $500 billion, and it went to $1.4 trillion
in Bush's
under
last
Obama.
year in office.
Now, how you can say that the
in
massive
the 08-09 budget
of all the red ink that has been run up in the history of our country, 40% of it has been done under Obama's watch and 60% under 44 other presidents' watch.
The point is
he's profligate and irresponsible.
Is that Barack Obama has lowered the deficit year after year after year.
He hasn't.
From what it was in Bush's last year, Obama's first year, the year of the Bush recession. In any case, the Republicans aren't complaining about spending. You're not complaining about the levels of the continuing resolution.
I would, but in a CR, basically what you're doing is you're going along with more or less where you are.
That's exactly. You're staying where you are, no increases, and that includes the budget sequester, which Democrats have been trying to get rid of ever since it went into place.
Republicans have passed legislation to get rid of the budget sequester, and
the
Senate has ignored it.
The Republican legislation is to do things like end food stamps, have more hungry people, make sure that there's more sick people.
Mark, there is a bill sitting on Harry Reid's desk waiting to go to the full Senate that repeals the sequester for the Department of Defense, and he has single-handedly kept it in his pocket and refused to let it see the light of day in the Senate.
And that's what Republicans do, because what they say is, we want to fund defense. We love defense. We want babies to starve and children not to have health care.
And Democrats don't like defense. You don't like national security.
Democrats say fund all the government. What Republicans say is only fund defense, and that's obviously a difference between the parties. Democrats think that the government does things other than defense, things like student loans, things like Social Security, things like Medicare, things like Medicaid, things like the state children's health insurance program, all kinds of things that help people. Democrats aren't against defense, they just think that all the government should be funded.
Well, all the government should be funded, but right now we're going to get all the details right, and when we come to an agreement, then the government will be funded. Until then, we're going to have something of a bumpy road.
Coming up, I'm going to have a great video that explains Obamacare. And what I really want to understand is why your party is so against it. I'll tell you why. You think we're going to like it, and you want to do anything you can to keep us from getting it.
Train
if you
wreck,
want to
Mark,
call in, 888-488-MARK.
A universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs or to make a tax-free donation, contact cfrip at AOL.com.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read. And may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America.
I actually like that. That's good.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. Two important things happen tomorrow. The first is that the government will shut down unless the Republican Party agrees to fund the government without basically taking the Affordable Health Care Act hostage. They're not going to do that. I don't think they may. We'll see. Maybe some moderates will come through and join with Democrats and do that. But the reason why the Republicans are fighting so hard is because Obamacare begins tomorrow. Ted Cruz, when he says this thing isn't working, knows that your first time you'll be able to see at healthcare.gov in 5 hours what exchanges you can buy on is tomorrow. And so they really want to try to stop it before it takes place. I think your party recognizes, Mike, that people are going to like this thing so much that they'll never be able to stop it. And interestingly, Ted Cruz has admitted that. Did you know that?
He actually did not admit it in that way.
He did.
Here's what he admitted, is that once people become dependent on yet another government handout, that it becomes almost impossible to repeal the whole thing.
Things like Social Security and Medicare.
I don't think he used those examples.
No, he didn't use those examples, but that would be, I mean, Republicans were against Social Security, they were against Medicare, and once they came into passage, now most Americans like their Social Security, they like their Medicare, and no one can end them. In the same way, the same thing will happen with the Affordable Care Act.
I don't think anybody's talking about ending Social Security. It's a red herring, you know. I mean,
well, but his point is that, and I guess my question for you is, let's play what Ted Cruz actually said to Sean Hannity, and I'll let you see for yourself. Let's play this on the screen.
If we don't do it now, in all likelihood, Obamacare will never, ever be repealed. Why is that? Because on January 1st, the exchanges kick in, the subsidies kick in, and the Obama administration has, by the way, eliminated the eligibility requirements. There's no checking on it, which means it's basically setting up liar loans. Their plan is to get the American people addicted to the sugar, addicted to the subsidies, and once that happens, in all likelihood,
it's over. Never gets repealed.
So we either do it now, or we surrender entirely. But the second point, which is so frustrating, but right now, in all candor, we do not have the votes to do this. We don't have the votes in the Senate. We don't have the votes in the House. And to be honest, we're not close right now.
So this is Ted Cruz talking with Sean Hannity, no liberal in the room, to be sure. And what they agree on is that this thing, once it happens, will never get repealed. Once Americans get a taste of this sugar, and that's the word he used,
the sugar is the subsidy, it's not the health care. The sugar is, he very clearly said, the sugar is the subsidy, not the health care itself.
The subsidy is exactly what Obamacare is. That's the definition of Obamacare.
No.
It's a subsidy to allow people to buy health care.
The Obamacare is the government takeover of the health insurance industry, so that you need to, Mark, no takeover.
There's no takeover at all.
My plan disappeared. My plan is illegal under Obamacare. They've pulled out. I have to shop now because my plan has disappeared.
As you know, Mike, in Virginia, the governor, unfortunately, is not implementing Obamacare for Virginia because he's a Republican.
And we're having a federal exchange.
Which is terrific. I can't wait for the exchange.
Because my plan has disappeared under the federal exchange.
I think they
will not let me have it.
I think there's a lot of misinformation on exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. So I have found a wonderful clip.
The president said I could keep my health care.
You can.
I can't. My health care, health plan has disappeared. My company has pulled out of the market because it is illegal under Obamacare.
Now wait, if you're employed by someone, you're fine.
No. I'm self-employed.
Okay. So just to be
my
clear,
health care has disappeared under Obamacare.
You're fine. If you get health care from the government.
No.
Children or Medicare.
He said,
you're fine.
He said if I like my health care, I can keep it. I can't. He misrepresented the facts of his legislation.
If your insurance company was charging you 25, 30, 50% profits,
no.
It's true they have to give some of it back. I don't know who the insurance company is.
They're not allowed.
Mine's continuing.
They're not allowed to have a catastrophic plan such as the one that I chose for myself.
You know what? They are. Let me play for you.
Not such as the one that I chose for myself. My plan is illegal.
Take a look at what happens tomorrow, because you're going to be able to go at healthcare.gov along with everyone here to see what's available.
You know what, Mark? There may indeed be a better plan out
there will
there.
be.
Doesn't
There will
matter. My plan has been taken away from me, and the president did it. That's the point.
Well, we don't know that that's true. I don't know what
We do know it's true. My letter from
your
my
plan
insurance
said.
company said they were pulling out because of that.
I'm sure they blamed Obama, but wait till you see what else you can get. Let me play for you. This is a good long clip. It's going to take about 7 minutes. We'll go into it. But I want to play for you because I think this is the best explanation I've seen of exactly what's going to happen starting tomorrow.
All right. It better not be the president.
It's not.
Well, it's finally happening. After years of drama on Capitol Hill, a Supreme Court case, a presidential election, and a Mayan apocalypse that could have stopped it dead in its tracks but didn't, the marquee elements of the Affordable Care Act, sometimes called Obamacare, are about to kick in. And big changes are coming to health insurance in 2014. In the next few minutes, you'll get a pretty good lay of the land by once again watching your fellow Americans, the U-Tunes, find their way through the system. There are 4 main ways nearly all of us will experience health care once the health reform law goes fully into effect. About half of us will get insurance through our jobs, just like today. About 1/3 will get covered by the government through Medicare and Medicaid. About 1 in 10 will buy insurance themselves. And unfortunately, another 30 million of us or so, just under 1 in 10, still may not have coverage at all. But let's begin in the workplace. Many Americans are already covered by their employers, and for them, not a whole lot will change. There will be some new advantages, though, like caps on how much you have to pay out of pocket, and free preventative care. The bigger changes are coming for those who work for larger companies but aren't covered now. That's because the government is going to require companies with 50 or more employees to cover full-time workers or pay a penalty. So, more workers may find themselves covered. Smaller employers won't face the same penalties for refusing to buy insurance, but they'll be encouraged to do so. The government will be setting up special marketplaces to make it easier for small employers to take the plunge. Some will be offered temporary tax breaks if they do, and unlike now, insurers can't inflate prices if some employees are sick. So, many of us will be getting covered at work. A lot of us will be covered with help from the government, just like today. Not much will change for seniors on Medicare. The law has already started helping with prescription drugs and better preventative care, and that will continue. Medicaid, on the other hand, is expanding to cover more of us, especially poor adults, many of whom aren't eligible today. If your income is low, Medicaid will cover you, most likely in a private insurance plan. But there's a catch. The Supreme Court ruled that governors and legislatures of each state should decide whether or not to be part of expanding Medicaid. In states that get on board, the feds will cover almost all the cost. But for those who don't, you may be left with the same options you have today if you're poor. So you'll want to check out your state's decision if you think you might qualify for Medicaid. Even with employer coverage and the expansion of Medicaid, a lot of us will still be left out. For those not covered or who find their work coverage too expensive, a new way to buy insurance on our own will be popping up everywhere. They're called health insurance marketplaces, though they may have a fancier name than that in your state. The health insurance marketplace is like a virtual insurance mega mall. Here you'll find private insurers competing for your business, and you'll be able to pick out how much coverage you want and how much you want to pay for it. From cheaper, high-deductible bronze plans to more expensive platinum plans. Still, all plans will cover a comprehensive set of services like hospital and doctor visits, maternity care, mental health care, and drugs. Most everything any of us need, at least when it comes to medical care. As with Medicaid, not all governors are on board to set up these marketplaces, but the feds will open their own in those states, and so you probably won't notice much of a difference. One big advantage of buying insurance through these new marketplaces is that the federal government will provide most people with a tax credit to make insurance more affordable if you don't have any other options and your income is below a certain level. In fact, most people buying on their own will be eligible for a tax credit and won't have to pay the whole premium themselves. And the marketplaces will make sure that insurance companies operate fairly under strict rules. They'll have to offer everyone insurance even if they're sick. and they won't be able to charge more for pre-existing conditions. Unlike today, men and women will pay the same price. And prices for older people will come down, while young people will pay more. To keep costs down for young people, though, they'll be able to stay on their parents' plans until 26 and buy low-budget catastrophic plans until they're 30. Of course, all these changes still don't mean insurance will come cheap. Most people buying their own coverage will end up paying less with the new health insurance tax credits. But some people will have to pay more, even though many of them will be getting better and more secure insurance. So let's be realistic. Not everyone's going to run out and buy insurance. Some might say, hold on a minute. If I can't be turned down or charged more, why not just wait until I get sick or injured to buy insurance at all? Well, first, you can only get coverage during special enrollment periods, so if you snooze, you may lose. And second, thanks to something called the individual mandate, if you're not insured, you pay a fine, making this option seem not nearly so clever. Still, if you really can't afford to buy in and can't get insurance anywhere else, the government will waive the penalty, so don't panic. By now, you've probably noticed a lot more people will be getting a lot more coverage. Where will the money to pay for that come from? Taxes. Many of them targeted at the health industry itself, even tanning services. Yes, individuals will pay too, mostly the wealthiest Americans, who will be paying more into Medicare. Also, hospitals and insurance companies participating in Medicare will get paid somewhat less. Not painless, but somebody's got to pay. So, as Americans prepare for 2014, how will you be covered? How would you like to be? Now's the time to figure it out and get on the path to setting yourself up for the best insurance at the best price. After all, who wouldn't want that?
So I thought that was a really good video put out. Of course, it tells people where to go, healthcare.gov. And a lot of people, I'm sure I will go tomorrow and see what a plan I can get. But don't be surprised if the servers break down, because everyone's going to be looking for it tomorrow. You have 3 months to make this decision. They don't go into effect until January 1st, 2014. So you can certainly wait till October 20th or October 15th or so forth. There may be a few glitches when it first comes out. When we come back, Mike, I'm going to give you a full chance to tell me why that is such a horrible, horrible thing that the Republicans would shut down the government over it.
That's not a horrible thing, but that is a Baghdad Bob utopia. It's crap, it's drivel, it's lies.
Oh,
it is
okay.
just crap.
Well, I'm going to give you a full chance to explain what about that is untrue.
Baghdad Bob couldn't have done a better job.
I didn't see anything about that was untrue, but I'm going to give you a full chance after the break to tell me what in that wasn't true.
All right.
Folks, if you want to call in, it's 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275, and give your 2 cents both on Obamacare, which goes into effect tomorrow, and whether or not the government will shut down in just 4.5 hours. This is Mark Levine. We'll be right back right after this.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about ripped off life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home? When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water. At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site. That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff. You know what the best part is? What? More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent! Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. Tomorrow, two very important things happen. The government exchanges open for people to see what health care they could get. That happens tomorrow. And also, the government may shut down tomorrow if the Republicans can't agree to let the government be funded because they're raising a snit over Obamacare. What I want to find out is what's the big deal? As the video showed, about half of us get it under our employers. That's not going to change. Another third get it under the government. That's not going to change. Medicare and so forth. And then for those that buy it on their own, there's real benefits. Now, it's true you do better if you're in one of those states that accepts Obamacare. Virginia is punting it over to the federal government. Fine. I can't wait to see what the federal government offers. I've got 3 months to choose whichever the plans I want, silver, bronze, or gold, whatever it is. And it'll cover everything, unlike a lot of current plans. My current plan doesn't cover drugs, for example. I can't wait to see this plan. I can't wait to sign up. That's for the self-employed. Everyone gets, who can't afford it, gets subsidies to pay for it. And sure, the rich pay a little more. That's true. Hospitals and medical device manufacturers and tanning salons, they pay a little more. It seems like a pretty good deal and not worth shutting down the government over. I know, Mike, you disagree. Take it away.
Mark, to subsidize your health care, why should a struggling young family who's, maybe got 3 children and their first child just turned 12 and they're getting braces, why should they pay?
They do better.
Why should they pay a huge tax on those braces?
They don't.
To subsidize your health care.
Oh, but they don't.
They do pay
no,
a tax,
no.
yes.
No, they get a lot cheaper health care.
Mark,
you watch, starting
those
tomorrow.
Braces are taxed under this bill, so they are paying a tax to subsidize your health care.
Well, I don't know whether it's paying my health care. It's
why
to subsidize
should they
people who
do
can't
that?
afford it.
I don't. They can't afford it. They're struggling. They've got 3
Anyone
children.
that makes under $80,000 a year, that's a family of 4, is going to get a subsidy.
Why should they pay a tax on the braces that they buy for their children?
See, I think these are all scare tactics.
Let's
trying to keep people from
I'm
tomorrow
telling you
it's
the
going to
truth.
happen, and then we'll see if people complain.
If the objective is to reduce the cost of medical care, then why are we taxing medical devices, which by definition drives up the cost of medical care?
It actually lowers the cost of medical care.
Let
me tell you why.
The cost. Okay.
Let me tell you how it does it. In every other civilized nation on earth, every Western nation, in France, England, Canada, the Netherlands, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, medical devices are way cheaper because what they do is they jack up our prices because they know the insurance companies are going to pay through the nose, the government's going to pay through the nose. Now there are cost restrictions. By taxing them, the medical devices are going to have to take a little bit less profit and provide these devices.
That's fantasy. That's George Orwell.
It works everywhere else in the world.
Bob.
It works everywhere else in the world.
Okay.
It works in Canada.
What about the employees of the University of Virginia, right here in our state where we are tonight? What about the employees of the University of Virginia who have just been told that all their dependents are kicked off the group plan because they're no longer going to be covered because they can't afford the requirements of Obamacare? What about that?
Their dependents are under 26. They're required by law to be covered by Obamacare. And if the Virginia government is failing to obey the dictates of the law, I have a simple solution.
First of all, it's UVA, it's not the government.
Okay.
Secondly, I'm sorry, I misstated that. They're not getting kicked off the plan. Their employer-paid subsidy is going away. So now a professor or a secretary who's supporting 2 children, maybe a single mom, who has her kids on the plan who are not only under 26, but probably in high school and maybe in grammar school, she's going to have to pay their full premium rather than have it subsidized.
The University of Virginia is run by the government of Virginia. There's an easy answer to
it. It's run by the Board of Governors of the University of Virginia.
They get a subsidy from the state. They're not a private university.
No, they're getting the subsidy from the state. They're using it to subsidize their employees. They are no longer going to subsidize the dependents of employees who might get it elsewhere.
It's an easy answer. Elect Terry McAuliffe in 1 month, and you'll have a Democratic governor, and he'll make sure that doesn't happen. Now, you're right. Ken Cuccinelli will make a lot of people suffer. That's true. But Terry McAuliffe, I guarantee you, will not have the University of Virginia take away anyone's health care.
What about about the community college in Florida who has just told all of their professors that they're limited to 28 hours a week in terms of what they do in preparation, teaching, testing, consulting, and everything else with their students. They will not exceed 28 hours a week because they can't afford the cost of Obamacare. That's their stated reason.
Well, they can state whatever they want to state. There are a lot of people that are going to try to be cheap. Look, we know that employers, if you hire less than 5 people, you don't have to do certain things under the law. If you hire less than 30 people, you don't have to do certain things under the law. That's just the way the law works. There are these places. What you're saying is that the people who have 30 might be able to reduce it to 28. But if you've got 530, you're not going to be able to reduce your employee pay force. The vast majority of Americans work for places that either have 100 plus employees or 5 or 6 employees, not the people that can just barely try to change the hours by 1 hour.
Mark,
very few people can work 28 hours.
What about the people who can't get a job in Obama's economy because he's driven the job so far away, and yet they're struggling, they're hustling, they're waiting tables 38, 40, 42, 44 hours a week, and if they work for a major restaurant chain, they've just been told effective tomorrow they are working 28 hours a week and not an hour more.
First of all,
what about those people who are just trying to pay their rent and they can't get a job in Obama's economy?
Well, people who've had trouble in the current economy, which, as you know, began with the Bush recession. This happened long before the Health Care Act, so you can't blame the Health Care Act for that.
Mark, it's been 5.5 years. And it's about time you accepted ownership of this bad economy.
Oh, the unemployment's going down. It's gone down from 9.6 to 8.6 to 7.6.
And suddenly this is acceptable. Suddenly,
and obviously, if we didn't have the Republicans cutting the budget, it would be down to 6.6.
And you know why?
If we didn't have Republicans shutting down the government, it would be down to 5.6. Your party does not want the economy to succeed.
When you look at the numbers, when you look at the numbers as to why unemployment has come down from 8.6 to 7.6, there's 2 reasons. People who are leaving the economy completely because they've given up because they can't find a job, or people who have taken low-wage service jobs such as waiting on tables. They're hustling, they're trying to keep from losing their house, they're working 40, 42 hours a week, and starting tomorrow they're down to 28 hours a week. Well, this is Obama's economy.
First of all,
that's why
the most lagging part of our economy is government workers, because Obama has reduced the government workforce drastically. And he's done it drastically far more than he would like to, because your party has insisted that he fire all kinds of hundreds of thousands of government workers, everything from, in the local level too, by denying states the aid they used to have.
Government employment is up dramatically under President Obama.
No, it's way down.
Dramatically.
It was very high under George Bush.
All right,
the sequester is harming people
what about
and the economy.
What about the 18,000 IRS agents he hired in the last year or two?
You know what happens when you hire an IRS agent?
Force this.
You know what happens when you hire an IRS agent? You bring a lot more money in. For every agent you hire, it lowers the deficit way more than the cost of the agent.
These are not people who are collecting taxes. These are people
taxes.
These are people who are penalizing people who do not buy government-approved, projected health care.
No,
that's what their job is.
They're penalizing people who don't buy any health care at all. Look, under the current system, as you know, Mike, if you are 25 and young and healthy and you don't have health care, and you get hit by a car, right? Mm-hmm. Then suddenly, if you don't have any money to pay for it, the entire society has to pay for it, because we don't let you lay on the street and die. But what this health insurance would do is it's much, much cheaper for the 25-year-old to pay a little bit of their own insurance than it is for all of us to pay for the cost of an emergency.
The 25-year-old is paying nothing. Now he's got to pay, probably $3,000 a year. You can't tell him that a $3,000 difference is nothing.
It's not going to be $3,000 a year, number one. And number two, you as conservatives used to believe in individual responsibility. Do you believe that if this person is hit by a car and can't afford it, that all of us have to chip in and pay for his care? I think you do, right? You support that law, don't you? You wouldn't let him die in the street. You're a good guy, right?
No.
So, given that that's true, why shouldn't we have him pay for a little bit of his care himself?
I would not let him die in the street, but I see absolutely no reason for the government to force you not to let him die in the street, should you choose to do that.
Well, if we don't let him die in the street, that's something we choose as a society. That's something we vote on. I guess under that provision that you would be against Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, because you wouldn't want society to pay for people in trouble.
How many times have on your show have I stated that I support Social Security? Let's not go down these roads.
It's the exact same principle. I mean, health care is, I think, a human right. I think every American has the right to live.
Health care is a responsibility.
It's a right.
It's a responsibility.
It's a responsibility of society to take care of the people within it.
It's a responsibility.
For the people to get health care.
A human right. When did we invent this human right? Was this a human right in 1700?
Neither was education. But I think education is a human right as well.
Was this a human right in
No,
1700?
and freedom from slavery was also not a human right in 1700.
Should have been.
Well, it should have been, absolutely. Yes. The point is...
And it should be today, even though it's not.
The point is, in 35 nations, it's a human right. In 35 nations, people just go in and they're sick and they see the doctor and everything's good
for them. It's a responsibility, Mark.
Let me tell you something. The idea that some corporation is going to do some horrible thing if we don't stop this law, to me it's kind of like saying, we can't stop slavery, because if we stop slavery, then you know what's going to happen? White people will let black people starve, and that would be really bad.
Mark,
you're saying corporations, if we do Obamacare, corporations are going to fire all these workers. These poor workers, I say, screw these corporations that want to fire people rather than give them health care.
Do I have to remind you it was the Democratic Party that defended slavery and the Republican Party that ended slavery? Is that
in
something
1865?
Is that something
do I have to remind you in
1965
that the Republicans did the Southern Strategy and turned against civil rights?
Do I have to remind you that while Al Gore's father was filibustering the Civil Rights Act on the floor of the Senate, that it was the Republicans who joined with Lyndon Johnson and passed the Civil Rights Act?
Do I have to remind you that?
Do I have to remind you of that? Do I have to remind you that Martin Luther King was a Republican?
Do I have to remind you that the Southern Democrats, of which you complain, all became Republicans? Everyone down to Strom Thurmond, to all the Southern Republicans, Democrats became Republicans.
And Strom
as soon as the Republican Party
transitioned into a very progressive, civil rights-oriented senator, and you know.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
He did.
That is ridiculous.
Well, it's not ridiculous.
I don't think the head of the Dixiecrats ever became progressive or supportive of civil rights.
On civil rights, he was.
You're getting off the subject. My point about Obamacare is, at the end of the day, what it does is it provides more affordable health care.
No, it provides less affordable health care.
Tens of millions of Americans, and Ted Cruz knows it.
Mark,
in 3 months,
it provides less.
You're not going to be able to stop
healthcare.
this thing because Americans are going to love it.
It provides less affordable health care. It provides less choice. It provides less quality. Another thing they lied about, they're saying, oh, and by the way, along with this is free preventative care.
Yes.
How is it free? Nobody is
part
paying
of your
for
health
this
insurance.
at all?
It's part of your health insurance.
Nobody is paying for this at all.
It's part of your health insurance.
Is it free, Mark?
It's required, but it's free to the consumer, yes.
And who pays for it?
Who pays for it?
Yes.
The same things that fund Obamacare, the extra tax money on tanning
so
beds
then
and medical device manufacturers.
Then they lied. It's not really free.
It's free to you and it's free to me.
It's not really
free if you own a tanning salon.
They didn't say free to you and free to me. They said it was free. Did they lie? Did they misstate the case?
Not at all.
They did.
Not at all. If somebody provides hot dogs on the street to you for free, do you say they're free hot dogs? You say they're not really free because the guy who's giving the hot dogs paid for them.
Right.
If someone provides, if
they're free to me.
They're free to people. Right.
They didn't say that.
What's gonna? They did. They said the tanning bed salons are gonna pay a little bit more so that you and I get free preventive care.
That's
fine with that.
The whole thing was such propaganda. I can't tell you how bad it was.
You haven't told me anything about it that's untrue.
I've told you 17 things in the last 15 minutes. What was untrue about it?
888-488-MARK. Joining the discussion, 888-488-6275. Right back after this. We'll get to Virginia.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. One last thing to discuss, and quite an important thing. We're going to be talking about it a lot over the next 5 weeks. The Virginia election is around the corner. Now, those of us in the state of Virginia, of course, don't just vote on even-numbered years like the rest of the country. We have this odd system that has us vote on odd-number years, and I think it's odd. And frankly, I would join the rest of the country and go on the even years. I'll see what Mike Lane thinks about that. But whether or not you like it, here we come. There's going to be an election for the governor, the lieutenant governor, for the Attorney General of Virginia, and also for all of the seats in the Virginia,
the House of Delegates.
The House of Delegates.
Not the Senate.
Not the Senate. That will all be on November 5th. It's a very important election. And Mike, I got to say, there's a lot of reasons why I think Terry McAuliffe is leading in the polls over Ken Cuccinelli. I think one of the big things, there's really two main reasons. One is the perception, one that I think is right, that your Virginia State Party has a lot of corruption problems, from the governor, McDonnell, on down to Ken Cuccinelli. It all has to do with the payments they received for promoting this guy's vitamin thing. I think that's a problem. And the other thing I think is Cuccinelli is way to the right of most Virginians, whether on issues of gay rights or abortion, or he didn't even, a woman asked him in the debate if he would abolish contraception. He didn't say clearly, I am against bills to abolish contraception. He said he supports this personhood amendment, which courts may well construe to abolish contraception. This is a guy way out of the mainstream of Virginia.
All right. I will concede that at this point, McAuliffe is a couple points ahead consistently in almost every poll.
More than a couple points.
More
like between 5 and 10.
Between 4 and 6, actually. Between 4 and 6 in most polls. There was a Washington Post poll that gave him 9, but the Washington Post poll has had no credibility for about 15 years. That's the outlier. Throw that one away. And the reason is because McAuliffe has been much better at running a nasty, negative campaign than Cuccinelli has.
I've seen Cuccinelli's nasty ads, and they're pretty nasty.
But McAuliffe has been nastier and better at it. So,
is not McAuliffe hurt by? Is not Cuccinelli hurt by McDonald's ties to this guy who gave all these gifts to him and his wife, and $100,000 in loans and Tiffany sprees and all this stuff? And Cuccinelli got money from the exact same guy and didn't report it. Seems to me he has the same ethical lapses as the governor, not as severe, but definitely on that same level.
I will grant you there's probably some negative turnoff on that particular issue. I think it does hurt. But I don't think you can put the governor's circumstances and Attorney General Cuccinelli in the same circumstances. Cuccinelli
They both got money from the same guy.
No, he didn't get money from him. He got a week at Smith Mountain Lake over Thanksgiving with a nice turkey dinner. That was what he got.
And $18,000.
Yeah,
that's a nice week.
It's a pretty nice house. I don't know if you've seen it.
$18,000?
Smith Mountain Lake is a pretty nice resort, and the house was a pretty nice house.
And what did the guy get for his $18,000 gift to Ken Cuccinelli?
He got a lawsuit from Cuccinelli, trying to collect the money that he.
Why didn't Cuccinelli report this?
I don't know why. He said that it was an oversight. It was Cuccinelli who came forward and did dime himself out and held a press conference and said, I overlooked this. I am now reporting this.
He said that after McDonald got in trouble with the same guy.
And he did take a personal check for $18,000 and he donated it to a Richmond charity to make sure that there was no nefarious thing going on there.
Here's the thing. There is legislation that the Democrats have proposed in Virginia to end this kind of ethical nastiness. And it is nasty to have these rich people go in and give money. In the governor's case, the governor's wife was out promoting this guy's business. Whether the governor knew about it.
That's perfectly legal and ethical under Virginia law. Now,
it shouldn't be.
Okay, maybe it shouldn't be, but there's absolutely nothing nefarious about the way you described it. It's all kosher under Virginia law.
We will see, because the prosecutors are looking into this, and the governor and his wife may well be indicted. We'll find out. In fact, I got to give kudos to the Justice Department. They haven't indicted him prior to the election. They're waiting until after the election, and I think that's a nice thing to do because it could affect the election and would hurt your party very much. I actually think they're being pretty reasonable about this, the Obama Justice Department. We'll see whether or not they're indicted. But my point's broader than this. McDonald...
Well, if they're indicted, it's for doing something above and beyond the circumstances that you just described.
I think it'd be for fraud. I think it'd be for lying about it.
You didn't allege fraud or lying. You very accurately described the circumstances, and nothing was nefarious under Virginia law about those circumstances.
But here's the thing. Virginia law needs to be changed.
I agree.
Idea that a very rich man can give a lot of money under the table, because it wasn't reported, to the governor and his wife in order for the governor and his wife to promote his business, to me is something
Mark,
that
you've just crossed the Rubicon. You didn't
because
say
I
that the first time. Yeah. There is no, at this point, even allegation of a quid pro quo.
There's evidence the money was given, and there's evidence the business was promoted. Now, you can tell me that they had nothing to do one with the other. You can tell me that the gift, the Rolex watch that he bought for the wife to give to the husband, had nothing to do with the fact that the wife is going out shilling for his business, and so is McDonald.
No, I'm troubled by the gifts. I don't think they should have happened, and I think they ought to be outlawed under Virginia law.
Good, but does Cuccinelli support that? I don't think he does.
Yes, he does. But however, it is the governor's responsibility to promote businesses that are domestically located in his state. Now, on to Cuccinelli. Cuccinelli was the first one to call for a special session of the General Assembly last summer to come back and to enact laws that would deal with the ethical and reporting problems
that we see now. Specifically, he was the one who would make this kind of payment illegal, and he hasn't answered that question. He's dodged it.
No, I don't. No, he said he would. Absolutely. What he dodged, the only thing he dodged is McAuliffe is out there saying, well, I think we ought to just outlaw anything under $50 or anything over $50. And so, okay, maybe Cuccinelli thinks it ought to be $60, or maybe he thinks it ought to be $40. No, I'm not saying he does, but he has not endorsed the $50 limit that McAuliffe has endorsed. But Cuccinelli was the very first person to call for a special session of the General Assembly to come back last summer and to deal with this problem.
Why doesn't he call for McDonald to resign?
There's no reason for McDonald to resign yet.
You think he has to be indicted for him to resign? No, you don't think it's ethical behavior?
No, I think there has to be a case made, a connection, and a quid pro quo, and it hasn't been made yet.
I think, frankly, what he did is enough, particularly with regard to the payments to his wife, to resign. But that's a side issue. Let me talk about Cuccinelli. In addition to these ethical lapses, we've got issues of where he stands on the issues. Now, Mike, Virginia is a purple state. It's a pretty. We've elected Democratic governors. We've elected Republican governors. In the past, it was a Republican state. No more. It's got a Republican legislature. We've had Democratic governors. We've got 2 Democratic senators. This state voted for Obama. It's a state that can go either way. This is not Idaho. It's not Utah. It's not Nebraska. Nor is it Maryland or Vermont or New York. This is a purple state. In a purple state, Cuccinelli's positions on banning things like the morning after pill, which a lot of people see as contraception, on bringing back sodomy laws, which he thinks need to be brought back, which would make illegal oral sex between people. Well, he does want to bring it back in some limited circumstances. He wants to be able to punish someone for a different crime, but by using sodomy. I mean, this is a guy, his poll numbers among women are down like 18 points.
And McAuliffe's among men are down 14 points. So,
although McAuliffe actually just got endorsed by the Fairfax Chamber of Commerce. So business groups here in Fairfax County are supporting Terry McAuliffe.
The second most important one, the Northern Virginia Technology Council, and roundly endorsed Cuccinelli.
I think that the Fairfax Chamber of Commerce is a little more important than the Northern Virginia Technology Council.
Actually, on the business scale, it's not.
But the point is that among women, this is the guy, Cuccinelli, who was insisting that Virginia universities, that they cannot refuse to discriminate against gay people without his permission as Attorney General.
Mark, come on, you're making stuff up. Stop, please. Yes.
No, the Virginia universities said, we want a non-discrimination clause.
Right.
And Cuccinelli, as the Attorney General, said, you can't do that without our permission.
No, he issued a legal opinion.
Right.
And he said that having studied the Constitution and available statutes, I find no authority in current law or in the Constitution
to not discriminate
for state agencies to independently issue these kinds of statements. It has to be done statewide, or they have to have the authority from the General Assembly to do it. You know, if you don't want, if you don't want an Attorney General who's going to fairly interpret the existing statutes of the Commonwealth of Virginia, then what do you want in an Attorney General? Do you want someone who crusades and makes this crap up?
There's a Supreme Court opinion, the Romer cases, I'm sure you know, that says that local authorities actually can
except Virginia is a Dillon rule state, which is different from 48 other states.
He also has gone against the Supreme Court, which has gotten rid of sodomy laws. He wants to bring them back in certain circumstances. But to me, the most interesting thing is women. This is a guy who's willing to ban the morning after pill. He's willing to ban contraception. He wants a personhood amendment. There's a reason he's so far behind among women.
There's nothing in a personhood amendment that bans contraception.
Sure there is.
It doesn't exist. No, it doesn't exist. And, you know, I know Ken Cuccinelli personally. He has never once mentioned this as part of his agenda to me, and I've talked to him a lot.
He was asked at the recent debate about contraception, and instead of saying, no, I wouldn't ban contraception, he said, the nice thing about me is you know where I stand. Well, we do know where he stands, and thankfully his term as Attorney General will end soon.
Let's talk
I don't think he's going to be governor.
Let's talk about TMAC. You know,
I want to talk about
the guy who says, when, you know, reinforcing his perceived alcohol problem, when he says, when they say, oh, have you not seen the pictures of him in Puerto Rico swinging it out of the bottle?
You're telling me the man can actually drink? Which
on
is
television?
You know, since Prohibition ended, alcohol has been legal in the United States.
Terry, with a Republican General Assembly, how are you going to get your agenda through? Well, I'm an Irish Catholic. I'm going to take him out and ply him with alcohol, was his answer.
That's how Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan did it, and it seemed to work. That's the difference.
Ronald Reagan plied no one with alcohol.
Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, both Irish Americans, got along quite well and were able to get a lot of things together the way, unfortunately, Republicans refused to negotiate with Obama and the federal government. 2 quick points. There is also an Attorney General race and a Lieutenant Governor race. Your Lieutenant Governor Republican candidate is a wacko.
No, he's not.
The Democrat,
no, he's not.
Dr. Northam is a very well-respected, longtime member of the legislature.
He is not respected. Mark, here's a guy who won the nomination by going around the entire Commonwealth saying, I never saw an abortion I didn't like. He had one issue, abortion.
He didn't
He's
say,
a
I never saw
one-dimensional, one-issue
an abortion
candidate.
I didn't like.
The guy is just an abortion freak. You can't call him mainstream.
And your Lieutenant Governor candidate he compared Planned Parenthood to the KKK. He's talked about gay people as being perverted. This is a guy who's running to be, let's face it, the head of the Taliban in Virginia. He wants to bring his own fundamentalist Christian sect in charge. This preacher needs to not be Lieutenant Governor.
As Lieutenant Governor to be, Jackson has said, there are things that you say in the pulpit that you do not bring out of the pulpit.
But he said outside
that you
the
do
pulpit.
not bring. Well, he was on a Christian radio station in his role as a pastor.
Separation of church and state.
Right.
This guy needs to stay in his church.
And he said that. There are things you say in the pulpit that I do not bring to public office. He said that.
Well, we're going to have lots more opportunity to talk about the Virginia elections. It's 5 weeks. Do not forget to vote. First Tuesday in November. That's the most important thing. Do not forget the Virginia elections. Mike, it's always a wonderful exchange.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And take a look. I think you're going to find on the healthcare.gov, there's a good plan for even you.
I don't want it. I don't want it.
He doesn't want to save money. I don't know why. Thanks again, Mike.